Vadis, chapter 34. While walking with Ligia through the garden, Vinicius described briefly in words from the depth of his heart that which a short time before he had confessed to the apostles, that is, the alarm of his soul, the changes which had taken place in him, and finally the immense yearning which had veiled life from him, beginning with the hour when he left Miriam's dwelling. He confessed to Ligia that he had tried to forget her, but was not able. He thought whole days and nights of her. That little cross of boxwood twigs which she had left reminded him of her, that cross which he had placed in the lararium and revered involuntarily as something divine. And he yearned more and more every moment, for love was stronger than he, and had seized his soul altogether, even when he was at the house of Aulus. The, the Parsie waved the thread of life for others, but love, yearning, and melancholy had woven it for him. His acts had been evil, but they had their origin in love. He had loved her when she was in the house of Aulus, when she was on the Palatine, when he saw her in Ostrianum listening to Peter's words, when he went with Croton to carry her away, when she watched at his bedside, and when she deserted him. Then came Chilo, who discovered her dueling, and advising him to seize her a second time. But he chose to punish Chilo and go to the apostles to ask for truth and for her. And blessed be that moment in which such a thought came to his head, for now he is at her side, and she will not flee from him, as as the last time she fled from the house of Miriam. I did not flee from thee, said Ligia. Then why didst thou go? She raised her iris-colored eyes to him, and beginning her blushing face, said, Thou knowest. Vinicius was silent for a moment from excess of happiness, and began again to speak, and his eyes were opened gradually to this, that she was different utterly from Roman women, and resembled Pomponia alone. Besides, he could not explain this to her clearly, for he would not define his feeling. That beauty of a new kind altogether was coming to the world in her. Such beauty had not been in it thus far, beauty which is not merely a statue but a spirit. He told her something, however, which filled her with delight, that he loved her just because she had fled from him, and that she will be sacred to him at his heart. Then seized her hand. He could not continue. He merely gazed on her with rapture, as on his life's happiness which he had won, and repeated her name as if to assure himself that he had found her and was near her. O Ligia, O Ligia. At last he inquired what had taken place in her mind, and she confessed that she had loved him while in the house of Aulus, and that if he had taken her back from the Palatine, she would have told them of her love and tried to soften their anger against him. I swear to thee, said Vinicius, that it had not even raised my mind to take thee from Aulus. Petronius will tell thee sometime that I told him then how I loved and wished to marry thee. Let her anoint my door with wolf fat, and let her sit at my heart, said I to him. But he ridiculed me, and gave Caesar the idea of demanding thee as a hostage, and giving thee to me. How often in my sorrow have I cursed him, but perhaps fate ordained thus, for otherwise I should not have known the Christians, and should not have understood thee. Believe me, Marcus, replied Ligia, it was Christ who led thee to himself by design. Vinicius raised his head with a certain astonishment. True, answered he, with animation. Everything fixed itself so marvelously that in seeking thee I met the Christians. In Ostrianum I listened to the apostle with wonder, for I had never heard such words. And there thou didst pray for me. I did, answered Ligia. They passed near the summer house covered with thicky ivy and approached the place where Ursus, after stifling Croton, threw himself upon Vinicius. Here, said the young man, I should have perished but for thee. Then I mentioned that, answered Ligia, and do not speak of it to Ursus. Could I be could I be revenged on him for defending thee? Had he been a slave, I should have given him freedom straight away. Had he been a slave, Aulus would have freed him long ago. Dost thou remember, asked Vinicius, that I wished to take thee back to Aulus, but the answer was that Caesar might hear of it and take revenge on Aulus and Pomponia. Think of this. Thou mayst see them now as often as thou wishest. How, Marcus? I say now, and I think that thou wilt be able to see them without danger when thou art mine. For should Caesar hear of this and ask what I did with the hostage whom he gave me, I should say I married her, and she visits the house of Aulus with my consent. He will not remain long in Antium, for he wishes to go to Achaea. And even should he remain, I shall not need to see him daily. When Paul of Tarsus teaches me your faith, I will receive baptism at once. I will come here, gain the friendship of Aulus and Pomponia, who will return to the city by that time, and there will be no further hindrance. I will see thee at my heart, O carissima, carissima. And he stretched forth his hand as if taking heaven as was at witness of his love. And Ligia, raising her clear eyes to him, said, And then I shall say, whatever thou art, Caius, there am I, Caia. No, Ligia, cried Vinicius, I swear to thee that never has a woman been so honored in the house of her husband as thou shalt be in mine. For a time they walked on in silence, without being able to take in with their breasts their happiness, in love with each other, like two deities, and as beautiful as if spring had given them the world with the flowers. They halted at last under the cypress growing near the entrance of the house. Ligia leaned against his breast, and Vinicius began to entreat again with a trembling voice. Tell Ursus to go to the house of Aulus for thy furniture and plain things of childhood. But she, blushing like a rose or like a dawn, answered, Custom commands otherwise. I know that the pronuba, the matron who accompanies the bride and explains to her duties of a wife, usually brings them behind the bride. But do this for me, I will take them to my villa in Antium, and they will remind me of thee. Here he placed his hands together and repeated, like a child who is begging for something, It will be some days before Pomponia returns, so they do this, diva, do this, carissima. But Pomponia will do as she likes, answered Ligia, blushing still more deeply at mentions of that pronuba. And again they were silent, for love had begun to stop the breath in their breasts. Ligia stood with shoulders leaning against the cypress, her face whitening in the shadow like a flower, her eyes dropping, her bosom heaving with more and more life. Vinicius changed in the face and grew pale. In the silence of the afternoon they only heard the beating of their hearts, and in their mutual ecstasy the cypress, the myrtle bushes, and the ivy of the summer house became for them a paradise love. But Miriam appeared in the door and invited them to the afternoon meal. They sat down with the apostles, who gazed at them with pleasure, as on the young generation with after their death will preserve and so still further the seed of the new faith. Peter broke and blessed bread. There was a calm of all faces. A certain immense happiness seemed to overflow the whole house. See, said Paul at last, turning to Vinicius, are we enemies of life and happiness? I know that is, answered Vinicius, for never have I been so happy among you.